Hey guys, welcome back to Maelstrom Gaming Studios. I'm Craig, and today we're going to go over 3 lists that I've come up for the Tyranids with the new Arks of Omen rules. These lists, I'll get in depth of them. We're going to talk about what they are, why I chose what I chose, how I think the playstyle is going to be, some pros and cons of all of them. They're here to act as a baseline, maybe get some gears turning for you guys, and put a little insight onto how I'm thinking I'm making lists going forward with the Tyranid Codex in Arks of Omen. If that all sounds good, do like and subscribe to stay up to date on all of our content here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios. If you want to support the channel just a little bit more, members, thank you. We do have channel membership. You can check that out with the link down below. We also have an Etsy shop. All the proceeds from the Etsy shop and channel membership goes right back into this channel to support us and allow us to invest and grow into better content. So thank you guys. And now with all that out of the way, let's dive into today's video. One more thing that I am going to advertise right now. Again, the link will be in the description, but on February 4th at noon, we're doing our first official live stream battle report. It's going to be Connor and his Grey Knights versus me and my Tyranids. I've got a special list cooked up for the first live battle report. It's going to be fun. It's going to include some awesome units, and we're going to have a lot of fun with it. Don't know if it's the most competitive thing out there, but it's going to be a blast to use. So if you guys don't want to miss that, go down and click that little link, mark your calendars. That live stream battle report will happen, and I am really looking forward to it. Connor is too. And we want to make it a really special event, being our first live stream battle report. So we'd appreciate it if you came along for that day. We're just going to be advertising a lot for the rest of the month because we really do want it to be special. So thank you guys. And now with all that out of the way, let's dive into today's video. Like I said, today we are going to be covering 3 2,000 point list ideas. They're all from different hive fleets. They all have different play styles, some similar units in there. Obviously, if you watched my video on Friday, you know what units I think are going to be key going forward for the Tyranids. So there's some element of those in these lists. And yeah, I'll go over some secondaries, some play styles, maybe some pros and cons. And I'm going to say this right now. These lists are not guaranteed to be the best list out there for Tyranids. This is mainly what have I come up with in the first week or so of having the rules. What if I have only one of these lists have I actually tried out on its own. I already think maybe it could use some tweaks. I mentioned that down below. But again, this is just designed to be a starting point for you guys. Maybe go from there, tweak what you don't like, what you do like, maybe based on the models you have. We'll go from there. We'll probably touch on this in 2 or 3 months' time, and once we finally figure out some more tips and tricks for the Tyranid. So let's get into it. List 1 is the Leviathan Horde list. Pretty much it is what it says it is. It is a horde of Leviathan bugs. So in the HQs, we'll start off with our first unique choice here, and this is something I'm gonna kind of see if it works. I haven't tried it yet. I've tried it before, but not in this style. This is a Malanthrope with Synaptic Tendrils. Now the Synaptic Tendrils is really good on the Malanthrope for 2 reasons. One, Synapse is an aura, so now it has a 9-inch Synapse range, unlike other standard Synapse auras. And its -1 to hit bubble is also an aura, so it then also gives out a 9-inch bubble of -1 to hit. Add to the fact that this thing is character protected, and you've got a pretty nice little support piece right there. You can bounce Synaptic Links off of it. You can just keep your bigger bugs more durable, have a nice broader range of Synapse. So I'm going to try it. I do think a Malanthrope in general is overcosted by maybe 20 points, 10 points at least, but that's what we got. I then am going for a Broodlord. I wanted one more faster, cheaper melee unit that also can do psychic actions, which is going to be important for this list. So the Broodlord is going to be my option there. His main goal, well, I'll get into it, but he's just going to be that kind of midline threat. I'm not throwing him up to charge headlong at the enemy, but he's going to support, kind of do some killing and support the little bugs doing their thing. And finally, we do need at least one threat in every army. So we are bringing a Foot Tyrant with Adrenal Glands, Heavy Venom Cannon upgraded to a Shard Gullet. If you want to give him a Warlord trait, you can. I don't think it's really necessary in this list, so Shard Gullet it is. And really, he's just going to act as your kind of start backline, but eventually be midline fire support. He's going to shoot something big and guarantee it's dead going forward, as well as once you get more into mid to late game, he's going to be that melee threat to kind of contest with the middle objectives with your opponent's bigger scary things. Into the troop choices, this is where the swarm is. We have 2 units of 10 Termagants, man, 20 of them, just two min squads. Idea here is maybe these are your backfield objective holders, maybe one of them follows around the Malanthrope for just some character protection, but those are your backline. We then have 4 units of 10 Hormagaunts. These guys are going to be your forward, deny your opponent's primary, score some forward primary, and do your secondaries, key secondaries there. So 4 individual units of 10. We're not going for damage here, so I don't want to bring big blobs. I just want single units I can sling across the board and put where I need to because they're fast. We then have 2 units of 10 Gargoyles. Again, same thing with the Hormagaunts there to move forward, get some of those forward primaries, deny primaries. But the reason I do have a couple Gargoyles in here is because Encircle the Prey is really good on Gargoyles, allowing you to take a unit, pick it up, and then in the next turn, throw it down in the backfield of your opponent and do things like engage in all fronts, behind enemy lines, spore nodes, rod, retrieve Ark of Omen data. I haven't even looked to see what it's technically called in there, but retrieve data, all of those are good. Bonus points if your opponent only kills like 5 of the Gargoyles, and then you could just have a 5-man unit that can hop around, which is perfect. But that's what they're for. Don't let those Gargoyles die right away. Then into the elites, we have 2 units of 5 Gene Stealers. Again, these guys are going to be forward deploying if possible, which it is in 8 out of 9 missions. And their job is to be maybe a little bit of a threat. I know they're not very scary, but that forward deploy is why we take them. And if you're going for behind enemy lines, throwing one of these units into your opponent's deployment zone, maybe going into melee with some of your opponent's screening units or something, that's 3 victory points right there. 2 units because I like redundancy. But yeah, they're going to be there. We didn't have a Lictor. You guys watch my video, you know I do really like Lictors this edition. Perfect for doing secondaries or miscellaneous actions. We have a Maleceptor. Maleceptor is really the key to the way this list will run. I'll talk more about him later, but he's going to be a big threat both in psychic, in melee, and a scoring potential for you. Again, we'll talk about it later. Technically an elite choice, but we have to slap him into the no force org slot in order to have room for him, which we can do. 3 Tyrant Guard. They're just bare bones to accompany the Foot Tyrant. And then finally, I have 2 individual Pyrovores. If you want to put them together, you can. I like the individuality in this because you can have them strategic reserve and just walk on to the sides. Great for some threat to your opponent's chaff. Great for doing your own secondary behind enemy lines. And you can keep one in your backfield if you need it for whatever the case may be. Whether it's like a strategic scan or something like that. So into the fast attack, I have a Moloch. I put Dermic Symbiosis on him. I know being Leviathan, you could put the Synaptic Enhancement. It's 10 points cheaper and it gives him the permanent transhuman. Though with the way he's playing, I think it's better to just put the Invone on him. And if you really need to, you can pay the CP to transhuman him. He's just there to cause a distraction, get you secondary and maybe primary points. And then finally, we have a Parasite with the Gestation Sac and Alien Cunning. Again, he's going to provide Synapse early game, and then probably late game, you can pick him up, drop him in the backfield, use the Gestation Sac, and get 4 victory points for behind enemy lines. So I've kind of talked about this already, but let's a little bit more on the play style of this list. So this list, you are playing to score, not to kill. Yes, you're going to have to do some killing, but the way I see it with this list is you want to try to maximize primary points. You're definitely going to want to try and maximize secondary points. You don't have a ton of killing potential. Yes, the Tyrant is going to do his thing. Yes, the Maleceptor is going to do things. The Hormagaunts could chew some things up if you want, though I really wouldn't treat them like battle line damage dealers. They're really more utility objective scorers in this game. And it's going to be a weird play style to play, especially if you're someone who's typically just, I'm playing to shoot, I'm playing to charge, kill, whatever. This is not that kind of list. You want to, again, limit your opponent's primary. You're going to win this based on primary and secondary alone. Is it? Yes, there's going to be armies like maybe Tau that are just going to light you off the board. But playing in Leviathan, your bugs are at least can't be wounded on 1s and 2s, which is going to make them stand around a bit longer. Another thing I did not mention for this list is we are taking the Endless Multitude adaptive trait, meaning most of our army is going to get a 6-inch pre-game move, which is just going to allow you that much more speed to go forward. I should have put that in earlier on, but there you go. So then on to, like I said, how we score Spore Nodes. Hive Nexus plus the Maleceptor Synaptic Imperative. So if you don't know, the Synaptic Imperative of the Maleceptor does many things. One of those is allow your units to advance and still do actions. With this, you can use the Hive Nexus, whether it's the Hive Tyrant doing it, or the Maleceptor itself doing it, or the Broodlord. You can pick a unit of Hormagaunts, pick the Maleceptor. That unit of Hormagaunts could move, advance, and do Spore Nodes all in one turn. Your Hormagaunts are probably going to be long gone outside of 12 inches, potentially doing this because you don't want the Maleceptor to be too far forward. But with our ability to chain our psychic powers, you should be able to pull it off at least the 1 or 2 turns that you need to. So yeah, that's the Horde list. Again, this isn't the best list ever. I'm probably going to try this in a coming battle report because this one I think could be fun to play around with on the table. So this will probably be the next one I try. But to the one I have tried already, let us move into list 2. This is the Kronos firepower based list. It is not an OBSEC monster Kronos. This is going for the Kronos specific adaptive trait to get extra AP if you're within half range. We're going all out on damage. I figured if Armor Contempt is gone and you get an extra AP, you're kind of playing with around +2 AP or additional -2 AP on some of your shooting, which against Marines is huge. So let's talk about the list. So first up, we have the Tervagon with Maw Claws and Adrenal Glands. Comes in at 240 points. It's a big point number, but it does 2 things very well. It supports your Termagants, which are actually scary in Kronos, and it's a melee threat. It's one of your main melee threats of the army to help contest the midboard with. So Tervagon, excellent choice there. We then have a Neurothrope. Neurothrope's just going to be there to cast off important powers. The Symbiostorm Psychic Power is a higher warp charge, and it's crucial to get off. So having that Neurothrope to more reliably get that Psychic Power off is going to be good. Also, you're going to probably want to be putting Catalyst on either one of your big bugs or your Termagants. So again, having a reliable caster do that will be the Neurothrope. And just like last list, we're going to be using a Foot Tyrant with Adrenal Glands, Heavy Venom Cannon, Lashwood Bone Sword, and the Shard Gullet. I think, especially in Kronos, this thing is disgusting. It is because it gets +4 inches of range, it is a 40-inch range gun, but at 20 inches, it is, strength 12, AP -6, damage 5. Unless something is just like a 2-up save or a 1-up save, no invuln, AP 6 is the most you're ever going to need in the game. So great there. Termagants, again, in the troop choices, we have 30 Termagants, sorry. Again, this would be your backbone. These things, strength 5, AP -1, damage 1. You get them into half range, now they're AP -2. If you want to put Symbiostorm on them, now they're strength 6. If you want to put Symbiostorm and Scorch Bugs on them, now they're strength 7. They start to stack up to the point where they're actually cracking open tanks if your opponent is not careful with them. So it's important to keep that unit alive. With the Tervagon and Catalyst, they will be staying alive for a while to come. Into the elites, we have a Lictor. I know I like the Lictor, so having one of those there, great. We have 3 Tyrant Guard, again, basic, just keep track of the Foot Tyrant. And in this iteration of the list, I brought a unit of 3 Pyrovores. In the future, I think there might be some changes, but I'll talk about those later. So 3 Pyrovores. Fast attack, we have the Moloch again. I think a Moloch in every list is going to be key. And then a Parasite with the Gestation Sac and Alien Cunning. Again, I think those two units are going to be in just about every competitive tier in the list because of how crucial they are in the secondary game. Finally, we have, well, not finally, but we have then 2 Tyrannofexes, giving one of them Dermic Symbiosis. They are expensive, but they're very good, having that extra AP at half range, and they have a long range. So this brings them up to 22-inch range Flamers at AP -3. If you get to half range, they're AP -4. They will chew through troop choices, as long as they're not Death Guard troop choices, all day. You do have the option, you do have the option to strategic reserve them. Again, I'll mention it later, but it's great for the Tyrannofexes. And then I'm bringing a Tyrannocyte in this list. The plan with this one was the Tyrannocyte drops in the 3 Tyrant Guard, and if your opponent doesn't screen them out well, then that is 4 victory points on turn 1 plus a Flamer threat. If your opponent does screen them out well, then there's threats at least right in your opponent's face, and if they don't deal with them, you can work your way up towards getting them into behind enemy lines territory. If not, they're just a nice meaty threat that does a lot of damage on the drop. We'll go into the play style. So again, this is a balance of scoring and killing. It's not pure scoring, it's not pure killing. I do like behind enemy lines for this. You can also take banners, retrieve the Arks of Omen data. You could try Psychic Ritual, a killing secondary if there's one of those. The list does very well if your opponent is infantry heavy, so maybe you take one of those. Yeah, those are the secondaries I like. For the list, really the Tyrannofexes are doing a majority of your damage. You do not want to lose them early on, so be careful with them. The option to strategic reserve one of them is great because they have such a long threat range. You can put them in, and even if your opponent screens them out, they can still come on in some area and most likely still touch some sort of threat with that range. Gargoyles, use them wisely. You only have these 2 troop choices. Your Termagants aren't going to be doing actions because they're more of a damage dealer this game. So use them wisely. And then, so the change I did mention, the pod is great, but a smart opponent will screen out the pod and it won't really do what it's supposed to do. What you could do otherwise is drop the pod, keep the unit of 3 Pyrovores, but you could add an additional single Pyrovore and an additional Lictor. These will give you 2 other units for behind enemy lines, and then that 3-man block of Pyrovores, start them on the table and walk them up. They're an assault weapon, they're a flamer, so you can advance them turn 1 without any penalty. Plus they have such a long range. 22-inch range on the big gun means turn 1, they will be in range of something if your opponent has deployed up on the front line. And that way you can put Symbiostorm on them turn 1. You can put them in cover turn 1, and they can be a threat for the midboard. Honestly, I kind of like that way better, so maybe I should have changed this list. But having 2 Lictors, the Parasite, potential Gargoyles, the Moloch, is enough, I think, to score a decent amount on behind enemy lines. So you probably won't be getting the full 15, but you could probably easily do 12, if not more than that. So that's this list, and I do like it a lot so far. It has won the one game I've played so far. Now we have list 3. This is Behemoth Monster Mash, another one that I think is going to be a lot of people's favorites, especially because everyone loves monsters. It's very similar to this last list, just the way it plays is much different. So Tervagon, Adrenal Glands, Toxin Sacs, it's going to be a melee threat. It's going to be OBSEC. We are playing the OBSEC monsters in this one. So it's going to be a melee threat. It'll help fight for that mid board. The Termagants are there to just gum up, maybe shield your big mama, gum up some of your opponent's objectives, and maybe hold some of your own. Neurothrope is there to cast. Honestly, in this list, you might be okay dropping the Neurothrope and put in something. You could maybe tweak some things around, scoop up a Broodlord, or just drop it all together and add some other things like a Lictor and a Pyrovore in addition. But the Neurothrope is there to do some reliable casting. You then have a Foot Tyrant with the Adrenal Gland, Shard Gullet. You notice the thing, that is, I think, the staple HQ going forward. It's good. And the fact that it's OBSEC and it's such a threat is great. Termagants, troop choice, nice and easy there. We have our 3 elites. We have the Lictor, like I said. We have 3 Tyrant Guard. And we have Pyrovore. Lictor, Pyrovore, Tyrant Guard. Going to be the staples going forward. Fast attack, notice they're the same too. Moloch and a Parasite with a Gestation Sac. Again, behind enemy lines is going to be key. Though in this list, it's going to be trickier to do. That is for sure. You're going to struggle, so maybe you want to take Engage with this list instead. Parasite is just as good as doing Engage. In fact, if you want, you can fly the Parasite over, deploy the unit of Rippers, hide them in the corner somewhere where your opponent might not be able to get to them, and then fly him away to go do something else. And that unit of Rippers can just keep scoring the objective points that it needs to. And Moloch is Moloch, although the Moloch in this case is going to be much more threatening now that it is OBSEC. So if your opponent leaves any ounce of its home objective open, the Moloch can pop in and steal that from your opponents, which is going to be really annoying for them to deal with. Moloch will die, but it'll be there and it'll deny primary and score you secondary. So it can easily be a 7-point swing in your favor there. The big heavy support. So we have another Tyrannofex. I chose to put the Acid Spray on it with Voracious Ammunition. The reason I went with this instead of, say, the Rupture Cannon is, one, I have the Exocrine with Dermic Symbiosis, which I think is just a little bit more reliable and more well-rounded. Furthermore, the Tyrannofex, when it's on 17 wounds or 1 wound, its shooting is just as dangerous. So really, you get this Tyrannofex, his job is to get up to the midfield objective and just sit there. Anything that tries to charge him, he overwatches it. The Voracious Ammunition is just add that little extra sting to its overwatch. Just guarantee maybe an extra wound, an extra kill, some guaranteed damage on there. Like I said, I have the Exocrine. He needs Dermic Symbiosis. He's going to be backline. He is going to be the one probably taking the blows from your opponent's anti-tank. So giving him that invuln save will be huge. And again, all well-rounded. Keep him on your home objective where he can sit, claim the objective because he's OBSEC, and do damage long range. And finally, we have 2 Screamer Killers. If you watched my last video, I said Screamer Killer is probably one of the best melee units that Tyranids have right now because they didn't get points bumps. These guys are coming in with Adrenal Glands, Sporocysts, and I had the points, so I gave one of them Synaptic Enhancement. If you want, like I said, you could drop that Neurothrope, drop the Synaptic Enhancement. That's 125 points you have to play around with. That is a comfortable Broodlord you could fit in there if you want something a little more melee focused. Or you could put in the extra Lictor Pyrovore. And you got, what, 5-10 points to play around with Toxin Sacs on, say, your Tervagon, which is actually a great investment. Or on your Moloch if you want to. So that's kind of how those go. The play style, let me get into that. So this is, again, balance of scoring and killing, not all killing, because I don't think Tyranids can do that anymore. not all scoring like the Horde list. Secondary options, again, behind enemy lines might be a good option. Banners, Warp Ritual. There could be a killing one that you could do, or you could do Grind them down. You could get away with grind them down. You have a couple min units, but if you hide those well, you could get away with that. I still don't like grind them down, but it's an option. You're going to maximize your primary scoring. Having all of these OBSEC monsters plus your other troops is really going to allow you to put pressure on your opponent from every angle. I like the Exocrine to sit on the backfield objective, like I said. Your Screamers and your Tyrannofexes are for the midfield. Don't take your Screamer Killers and just run them up the gut at your opponent. It's not going to end well for the Screamer Killers, and it's going to be a wasted 145 points or whatever they are. Keep them on the flanks. Typically the objectives stand as home objectives and middle objectives. Keep them on the flanks to contest those middle objectives. Most things that try and go towards that middle objective are not that scary in melee. They might be decent, but probably not something a Screamer Killer can't handle. And them being OBSEC, yes, they only count as one model, but maybe they're not a troop choice. And if they're a troop choice that have OBSEC, probably enough that a Screamer Killer can chew through. So keep that in mind. Tyranno, he could work his way towards the midfield because of his size, his durability, and his damage output is good there. The Moloch will focus on your opponent's deployment zone, and the Tyrant wherever he's needed. Basically, he's going to be following your opponent's key threats, putting out some big high damage shots and following it up in melee. So those are the monsters. Use the Screamer Killers wisely, but I think that'll be a fun list, and I will definitely try to get that one on the channel here too, because I think it will be fun. As for that live stream that I mentioned at the beginning, I think I'm going to be using the Hierophant in that list. So I'm keeping it at the end of the video, so hopefully Connor doesn't know and he'll be surprised by the big Hierophant or something. But yeah, so like I said, check out that live stream. I think I'm going to be trying the Hierophant in that list. We'll see what happens, but that's it. So these are the lists. Again, they're not set in stone. These are the best lists ever. They're mainly to get your gears moving, try them out, see what worked, didn't work, come back with some revisions, and we'll go from there. Are there other options you have in your head that you are trying? Put them down in the comments. Let's try and figure out the best way to be with Tyranids. I think they're not the greatest army currently, but going through these, I think there are still ways we can make the Tyranids win in 40k right now. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you, members, for supporting. And we'll check you out next. We'll check you out. We'll see you. You can check us out again. We'll see you next time here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios.